In this video, I'm going to answer a very simple question, and that is, can you trust a Carfax when buying a used car? And in this case, the answer is no, and I'll tell you why. Because as you know, we recently purchased a 2013 Mini GP from Trophy Motors down in Texas. Now, normally when we buy a car to feature in our video series, we go and look at it. But because of the current situation, I was unable to fly down to Texas, so I had to rely on what the dealer told me about the car. And we did a video basically showing what a hot mess this Mini is, and you can watch that video by clicking on the link below. But today we're gonna do something even more interesting. We're gonna go to our local mechanic, the one that we use to fix our cars, and find out exactly what is wrong with the car, because what the dealer told me and what is actually wrong with the car are two different things. But first, some background. So I did ask for several things from Trophy Motors, and one of which they sent me is this, the Carfax. And if you go through the Carfax, you'll note that the car has about 57,000 miles on it, that it lived most of its life in New Mexico, and that it was serviced by the local BMW dealership in Albuquerque. It said that the car had no structural damage, as reported to Carfax, did not have an airbag deployment, as reported to Carfax, and that's important. I'll get to that in a second. The odometer check, no additional mileage or rollback, no accidents, which is also interesting, as you'll see when we go to the mechanic, and no manufacturer recalls. So Carfax is basically as clean as you can get. The other thing that the dealer sent me, which was interesting, is this. And this is a report from the auction company detailing the car. Now, it goes through the engine, it says it was okay, transmission okay, odometer okay, frame okay, AC okay. And then there are two interesting bits of information on the car that should have been a red light for me. The number one is right there. It says airbag light is on, which the dealer did tell me about, and that the technician could not talk to the Mini's computer system, in other words, could not talk to the car about why the airbag light was on. And when an airbag light is on in the car, basically means that the airbags aren't working, which is not a good thing to have in a tiny little car like a Mini. The other thing that there was this explanation down here of what was going on with the car, which was illegible. Basically, I don't know if you can read it, I certainly can't read it. So we did have two red flags about this car, but you know, I thought to myself, I've got a clean Carfax. I do have an airbag light on, which is a big red flag, but you know what? It's a very unique car. They don't import a lot of these. I'll never probably have another chance to get one. It was also priced much lower. The dealer was asking about $15,000. We got it for $13,800, which for a 2013 Mini Cooper GP is very low. They're like $20,000 to $30,000 cars. So I thought, you know what, let's roll the dice, and this will make an interesting video series because there might be some problems with it. And an interesting video series it is indeed making. So let's go find out why it's so interesting from our local mechanic. Here we are at German Auto. Yeah, I know it's a British car, but we've been taking our cars here to Toby forever, and he's a great mechanic. He knows his stuff, so let's have him do a walk around of the car and find out exactly what's wrong with the car that wasn't on the Carfax.
First off, here's the Mini GP 2013. They brought it in. The first few things I started looking at here would be this headlight ring is really loose and about to fall off. After that, I started looking more at the front end, if there was a wreck, and the paint job actually specifically on the bumper. And you can actually see the physical damage. So it's kind of hard for me to say that no one knew about it or seen it. You have a headlight squirter, and there's actually a squirter on this one, but it's not hooked up to anything. On this headlight across from there, which is the good side, unwrecked, it has just a blank, basically, where it has a nice chrome cover and a fake headlight squirter where there's nothing there. So I know this headlight's definitely been replaced just because of the squirter. Over here is where I seen the overspray, all right here in the grill. You can see the little dots, and then back here you can see the silver, big, thick. And if you look at the paint job, it's not the best. It does have some fisheye in it. What really concerned me was up on the hood here, because you can see how none of this lines up like there's a little bit of Bondo everywhere in the hood because it's not perfectly flat here.
Yeah, so this is like got Bondo.
Oh yeah, yeah, you can tell because it's not a flat surface and there's a bubble right there. And then they put a little rivet in there. That's not factory. I'm assuming it was more a side hit.
Right, yeah. So, and this was replaced probably.
Replaced with a used part, I'm guessing, off of the long Mini.
Yeah, you know, my guess is that this car was tracked hard.
Oh yeah.
And probably, you know, ran into a wall.
We did notice too upon startup, cold startup, she smokes a little bit out the tailpipe.
A little bit,
just
yeah.
a little bit.
Okay.
So that's a sign that they've been tracking it or beating it up pretty good, whoever had it.
Because at 57,000 miles, you would think, yeah.
The motor should be in good shape still at that mileage if you were nice to it and did you know, services to it.
I got a Carfax, right? The Carfax said no accidents.
Yep.
But obviously there's been an accident. So does that mean that the Carfax was wrong, or does that mean that they just didn't report it?
Someone did the fixing and no one knew about it. So basically, you know, whoever was at the track, they wrecked it. One of their buddies at the track probably said, oh, I can fix that for you. You know, put it together, and no one knew about it because it was, you know, put together, painted, and never reported to anyone. Body shop, insurance company. But, you know, some of this stickering is definitely not the best.
Yep.
And then up here is really what scares me on this car. So you start working up around this corner bead here, and you see how the paint does not match right there, like they missed a spot. You come back here, this is a crack right here in the Bondo. So there's definitely another impact back here. And with this being brand new and loose as well, that's another sign to me that, you know, in the incorrect part, as we said, it does not have a flap on it here, which the other side does. Yep. And then underneath here with this rim being so smashed, I did find the actual adjustment on the control arm being as far as you could ever get it in. So I'm hoping that your alignment is still on and you don't have further issues. You never know, it could be small from about here to here, and it also could be the whole quarter panel filled with mud. Yeah, so only used down the road, someone will figure out how bad it really is. The dash has a nice piece coming off of it, and the seat piece is broken, and you know, it does have the nice spoiler and all the nice exhaust, and all that stuff doesn't seem to be touched too bad.
Now, did you get it up on the lift?
I did. I checked it on the lift, top to bottom. It's actually so low, this car, because it's got the aftermarket coilovers with the H&R lowering springs. Yep. I had to pull it up on 2x4s to get it on the lift because it's so low, and checked it out top to bottom, and I didn't see any major frame damage, any major under damage. You didn't bend none of the main components, just some of the actual surface components that can be changed, and if it's fixed properly, you wouldn't actually been able to tell. But whoever fixed it didn't spend the proper money on it, and that's what you get. The oil was really black. I believe they were probably about 2,000 to 3,000 miles over easily. You know, this is a factory nice strut stabilizer, and whoever was in here probably doing the air filter or something last had it loose. So the bolts were loose, and when it's loose, it's not really, you know, stabilizing the car. So I did go in there and tighten those up. All the lights on the dash and stuff like that will have to be taken care of, and you know, the little gapping left and right on the bumper and just little stuff's gonna have to, you know, be fixed up properly. That way it looks good, and you know, it's going to be a decent car for someone.
The airbag light.
The airbag light, yep.
You hooked up the sensor to the airbag. What'd you get?
Yeah, my scan tool basically told me on the airbag system that I cannot communicate with any of the crash safety control module, which is the airbag system on this vehicle, and there's no communication, which means one of two things. Either it's not getting power, or it has a bad control module, which is the main computer, and that usually happens in a wreck. When the vehicle gets in a wreck, the computer reads it's been in a wreck, blows an airbag, a seat belt, and then it's actually in the computer from then on. So it has to be repaired, you know, sent out, reflashed, repaired, and then you can put it back in and get the lights out.
So potentially you may need a new computer?
We might need a new computer, and we might need a reflash, basically clearing the crash data out of it.
Okay, how much is a new computer?
A new computer for one of these things, it could be anywhere from $800 to $1,000, and that's, you know, if you get a deal on it.
Okay. All right. The second light that's on is the Tpms light, and we're going to go take care of that next.
Yep,
right? Because that's a light that we can take to hopefully the tire shop and then have them. What can they do?
Basically, they go through it. They have a special tool that reads behind the valve stem on each rim. There's a sensor built into it, and that tells the computer how many pounds are in the tire. And when there's an issue with the sensor on each wheel or the computer, it pops the light on the dash. So hopefully they will be able to diagnose the bad sensor in a wheel, or possibly the previous tire shop broke a sensor on installing the wheels.
On the new tires.
On the new tires,
yep. There's a way you can reset it, but we tried and it doesn't work.
Yeah, it will not reset, and same with the airbag light. You go into the system, it won't communicate, so you cannot reset it.
All right, and
Yep.
the third light is a brake sensor
The-
light. Yeah. So what's going on with that, you think?
Basically, it's, you know, a type of thing on these cars where you get on the lift and it shows you a lift car on the lift and it wants the service done and it has a brake light on, which indicates usually low on brake pad. Someone actually just did front and rear brakes on this car. They're brand new.
Oh my God!
Which is good news because it does have the big brakes on it. So that's one good thing. I can say that.
We got new tires that are weird ones and new brakes.
Cheap tires and good brakes, yeah. The one issue I did see on that is the front left has a brake pad sensor as well, and that actually was installed incorrectly and rubbing on the inside of the rim, which will lead to the wires breaking and the light coming on again. So I did fix that for you, straighten it out so it won't happen and cause further issues and money. The issue is I cannot get my scan tool to actually reset the percentage of the rear brake pads, and because they're new, you're supposed to go in there and reset it with the scan tool to 100%, and my scan tool will not let me redo it because the sensor's bad. I believe they might have reused the old brake pad sensor to save money. And it was bad.
So we gotta get a new brake pad.
Yeah.
When you get the sensor, let me bring it back to you. And hopefully you can also do the airbag light.
We'll go for the airbag next, and then if they don't get the sensors and can't fix that, we'll go for the ODC module. We'll check into that, make sure it's working properly, and do some testing. And then, you know, from there, we'll basically straighten all the little stuff out to make it, you know, where you'd like to see it. I believe the bones are good on it. That's what counts.
Yeah,
it's got good bones. It's solid, and it's going to be a good one. It just needs some love and some money.
So the Carfax says no damage, no accidents, when in fact we have a car that was damaged and has had at least 2 accidents. Can you rely on a Carfax? Well, you know, the important part here is as reported. So if the owner of your dream car decides not to report it, then you end up with something that is certainly not reported on the Carfax. And now the fun part begins. You may be asking yourself, am I disappointed that we got a car sight unseen that turned out to be, well, a bit of a hot mess? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, I would have much rather had a car that, you know, didn't have damage, especially one that's one of 500 imported to America. But at the same time, this makes for an interesting video series, and now I get to have some fun kind of project managing this and bringing it back to something that this car should be. So let's get that started right now by taking it to our local tire shop and getting one of the 3 lights sorted, hopefully. You found a bad one.
So that one might not be working.
Okay.
That one's good.
Okay.
That one's good. Yeah, I don't think this one's working. So what we could do, we could replace the sensor if you want.
Let's do that, yeah.
Okay.
At the end of these videos, I always like to do a running total of how much money we've so far have spent on this problematic GP. So we bought it for $13,800. We spent $500 getting it shipped from Texas to Colorado. Toby charged me a whopping $97.92 to change the oil and go over it. And then Discount Tire just charged me $65 to fix the TPMS sensor and get one of the 3 lights off. So let's see, 1,300 plus 500, that's 14,300, 14,400, 14,500, give or take. That's where we're at so far, which isn't too bad for actually a pretty nifty little car.